Without further ado, if you have cushy bolsters, a pillow, even a throw pillow off of your couch, that can be super helpful. If you have blocks, if you have a meditation cushion, if you have a folded up blanket or towel, a foam roller can be nice too. Even if it's one of the harder ones, you can at least maybe rest your forehead on it in something like diamond pose or butterfly pose. So, all right, let's go ahead and find our tall seat. We will start in a seat. So again, you can sit onto the edge of a towel or blanket if you'd like. If you'd prefer, we can sit on the floor if that feels comfortable to you. Rest with the hands onto the tops of your legs. And begin to observe the breath moving in and out of the nose. As you inhale, feel the breath move in through the nose, down, filling the lungs, the rib cage, and down into the navel. As you exhale, release the breath back up and out through the nose. Inhale, down into the navel. Exhale, up and out through the nose. Feeling the capacity of the breath expand. And allowing the speed to slow down. Though we put forth a little more effort to the breath initially, let it become more effortless. Taking note of the events of your day or your week, knowing what brought you here, and let yourself just be in this moment. No lists, no roles, no worries, just here, present with yourself. As you inhale, feel the breath not only move into the navel, finding the capacity of the breath physically, but feel the energy of the breath move out into arms and legs, as though you're breathing through a whole body, not just our respiratory system. And if you'd like, set an intention for your practice based on how you have been feeling. Maybe this idea or this intention is just the act of being present, which can be difficult to stay with for very long. The mind likes to distract itself. It likes to run around and think of all the things. It's hard to get it to quiet. And keeping your intention with you, you can use this as an anchor for the mind as you rest in each shape, repeating it in your head. And it can be a quote or a phrase, something a little more light if that's what you're in for tonight. And bow your head to your chest to seal in your intention. And blink the eyes open, taking the head up. Please go ahead and face the short edge of your mat if you're not already, or depending on the floor that you're using, maybe a carpet, maybe laminate or hardwood. Take your left leg straight out in front of you and bring your right foot inside your left thigh, so like a tree pose shape for head to knee pose. Sitting tall, hinge at the hip joints, begin to fold forwards. So again, we can take props, we can take blocks, towels. You can even rest the arms on the top of the leg or maybe to the shin. Release into your fold here. Again, these poses are held for much longer than they would be in a more mobile hatha or vinyasa class. So if it feels uncomfortable, if we fold and all of a sudden we may be 2 minutes in and you're thinking, I regret folding this far, back off, back up and out of that shape. We do not have to stay in the shape we landed in. We could go a little farther, or we could pull back if we decide it's too much. And be aware of the breath at the navel. Again, giving the mind somewhere to land. Breathing into the belly, feeling it expand, maybe into or toward the left leg. If you'd like, we can observe the direction of the breath like we did in the beginning, in through the nose, down into the navel. And exhales back up and out through the nose. And please begin to sit back up, noticing what may change after we release the fold. Maybe there's warmth down the leg, maybe there's a tingling, and maybe you don't feel anything at all, and that's okay. And please switch sides. Right leg out, left foot in. And this side might require the same prop, same variation, or it may require a modification. Lifting up and out of lower spine, begin to fold forwards. I know for me, my right hamstring and the back chain of the leg is a lot tighter on my right than my left. Maybe you find the same, maybe you find a difference. And trying to not restrict the breath. If there's any intense sensations in the low back, in the right hip or the right leg, try to keep our full expansion of breath. This doesn't mean increase or amplify the breath, but make sure we're not restricting it either, that we're not shortening the breath or shortchanging it just to be able to get farther. We do not need to get farther in this shape or this practice. And please sit back up, again resting for a brief moment. Maybe coming out of the pose offered more sensation than staying in the pose. And please come into diamond pose, or what you may be familiar with as butterfly, but we'll take the feet farther away from the hips. So there's a wider, larger angle in the knees. For this one, depending on your propping situation, I like to put one of my cushions between my calves so that I can let my elbows rest. This could be too much, or it could not be enough. Hands behind you, lifting tall, lift through the chest, hinging at the hips to fold the spine forwards. This may be plenty. Or, again, we can set the elbows or hands onto a prop, onto the legs, or continue to walk the hands farther out in front of you. The first two shapes, if you were curious, were held for 2 minutes. This one, as it's symmetrical, will hold for 3. And on your inhale, please sit back up. Now we'll set the prop off to the side and we'll take a little bit of movement. Leaning back onto the hands, plant the feet to the floor toward hip width. Release the knees to the left. Stay for a moment here, breathing into perhaps the outside of right hip. Side seam or top seam of the right leg. We may feel this in a couple different places. Lift back up and release the knees to the right. Left knee can hang toward the floor. This side might look or feel very different. Internal versus external rotation could be very different on either leg. And please sit back up. Take the legs straight out in front of you for staff pose. Lots of seated poses first. Hands behind you, lifting tall through the spine again. Instead of just folding over one leg, we will fold over both. And if you'd like to, knowing if your hamstrings or low back tend to be points of tightness or points of discomfort, we could take a rolled up towel or blanket and place it underneath the knees so that the knees actually keep a little bit of a bend. Just like if we would bend the knees in a standing forward fold, we'll let something else bend the knees since we're passive here. And if you'd like, we can take an additional prop, a pillow, a block, and rest it onto the shins or the tops of the legs. Too much pressure on the front of the knees may be uncomfortable, but if you've been hanging out for a minute so far, you might have already discovered that. Adjust as needed. And you may find that you'd like to add an additional prop so the head can be supported by something other than the neck. Again, we're not always used to staying in these longer held poses. You may notice that you need to shift depending on what you feel in that moment. And please sit back up. You can set block, prop, or towel off to the side, any or all of them. And we'll come into a wide leg seat. So for this one, you may want to sit the hips onto the edge of a blanket, or if you do have a cushion. Taking the feet not necessarily as wide as they can go, but so we do begin to feel a stretch in the inside seam of the legs. Hands behind the hips to lift up and begin to fold forwards. So if you've elevated your hips and you're not used to that, it may feel like you're kind of falling forward. So again, please feel free to prop hands onto the floor, onto a block, onto a cushion or blanket. And begin to hinge from the hips. And in yin, we don't pay as much attention to alignment per se. We'd like to enter the pose with proper alignment, making sure we're not rounding or hunching. But once we know we're folding from the hips, we can relax a little bit. We can let the spine round and soften, being a little less rigid with our pose and our practice. And please sit back up. Come on to our backs for these next few, working a bit with the outside seams of the legs and the outer portion of the hips. We'll come into a reclined crescent or a banana pose, Bananasana. We can move the hips more toward the foot of the mat so that we know that our head is going to have a space to land. And if you'd like, we can take a towel or blanket underneath the head if it needs a softer space or just a slight elevation, not even a pillow, like half a pillow. Move the left leg off to the side and we'll cross right ankle over the top of the left thigh. So it may seem like we're doing figure four. We're going to keep the right leg mostly straight and just hook at the ankles as if we're doing that standing crescent stretch like you might in a hatha or a vinyasa class. Shift the shoulders up and over to the left. Left hand can hold on to right wrist or the right hand. So we're increasing the stretch and the sensation through the whole right side seam. If this is too much in the neck or the shoulders, go ahead and let the arms rest into a goalpost shape instead. This still helps that whole side curve stretch, but it'll be a little bit easier through the shoulders. If you'd like, you can turn the head to the left as well, adding a subtle extension into the neck. If you'd like, we can picture or feel the breath moving up and down the whole right side, this whole point of feeling or sensation. And please come back to the center. We'll take the legs, but even distance apart from the center of the mat. So it may feel symmetrical and you might look down and think, wow, my legs are still really off to the left. That's okay. Resting here in what feels at least like a symmetrical shape. Letting right side normalize. Again, there may be a slight tingling. Maybe releasing the pose felt more intense than holding it. And please slide the right leg farther off to the right, crossing the left ankle over the top of the right ankle. Side stretch through the whole left side, shifting the shoulders up and over to the right. And again, if you'd like, right hand can hold on to left wrist, stretching long through whole left side of the body. And again, now and later on, notice if you're holding the breath when we come into a different shape. If there is discomfort, see if we can figure out if that discomfort is indeed just that, discomfort, and not pain or not something we may regret later. And please release back to the center of the mat. Feet a little wider than hips. Shift the shoulders back to the center. Arms can continue to rest in their goalpost shape or down at the sides. Again, notice now, compared to before, hopefully both sides feel a little more even, and if they do not, again, that's okay. We are not perfectly symmetrical beings. Moving from the outside seam of the legs to the inside seam, we'll come into a reclined butterfly pose, or similar to our diamond pose we took in the very beginning. Soles of the feet together instead of a fold. We'll let the knees relax wide. And we can take arms into a goalpost shape if that feels okay. A little extra in the shoulders might be what you're desiring or what feels good. If not, extend the arms down at the sides. Exhales into the back of the body. Breathing into the navel, into the pelvis. Maybe we feel a slight shift in the hips between inhale and exhale. Observing where the breath goes naturally. Its shape, its speed, its length. And again, give your mind as much stimulation as it needs right now to feel comfortable. But hopefully, after a few moments, maybe we require a little less stimulation, a little less mental or physical activity. Please take the legs back toward one another. We'll come back up into a seat, taking your time to do so. You can roll to one side, or if we can do so without a whole lot of commotion, rock straight up into a seat. Similar to our windshield wiper movement we had taken before, walk the feet a little bit wider than the hips, and release the knees to the left. Staying here, we'll sit up more into the hips. Notice the angle of the knees, notice the angle of the hip joints. I'll turn here so you might be able to see. We can take the right knee or the right leg a little farther out, maybe the left shin a little farther out. So we're going toward 90 degrees in both knees and perhaps in the hips as well, sitting up into deer pose. So you may feel this more in the inside of the right hip joint. You may feel this more in the outside of the left leg. And you're welcome to lean back on the hands like we did in our previous variation. This could be plenty, or we can lift up and go hands free. Your choice. Again, notice if this tension, the sensation in right or left hip, depending on how you feel this, is inhibiting the full breath. And please switch sides. We may need to lean back, bend the elbows back in order to do so. Lift the legs, and again, we might need to change where they are. They might have slid far off to the right. Release the knees to the right. Rest here for a moment. Allow the legs to acclimate, and you could even shift the legs farther apart right now. Sitting up into left hip. Again, one side could be very different than the other. I'm not sitting up any taller on this side. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. And the knees do not have to land. If you're thinking, I can't do that pose, that's okay. You're already doing it. For some of us, one knee might land, one knee might not. Currently, my left knee is, my right knee is not. On the other side, I think it was actually the same. Left knee didn't land all the way, but the right knee did. So it can be uneven between both sides consistently, or you might notice it differently every shape you take. And we'll lift back up. Go ahead and lean back onto the hands. We adjust our seat back to face the front. From here, we're going to come down onto hands and knees. We'll take either wide leg child's pose or frog pose. Frog pose will have both knees and feet wide of the edge of your mat, or we can flip sideways so that they have a cushion. If we are in frog, hips will be in line with the knees still. If you'd prefer, we can take wide leg child's pose. In this case, knees will be wide, but the toes will be in, and the knees will land around the rib cage instead of the same line as the hips. Finding your preferred inner hip symmetrical pose. And if the forehead does not land, if this is arms, or stack the hands, even stack fists, or grab a block or a blanket and let your forehead land on something if it does not land nicely on the floor. And please rebuild back up onto hands and knees. And from here, walk the knees below the hips. We'll come into a lizard variation. So our wider variation of dragon pose, if you're familiar with that in yin. Please step the left leg forward. So we might need to adjust where the knee where the foot land. Arms are inside of the left leg, allowing the hips to lunge forwards. We can stay to the hands here, lifting the chest forward slightly. This could feel fairly intense. You're welcome to fold the edge of your mat in if the knee landing here for too long is way too much. We could take the hands to blocks to bring the chest a little higher, or we could lower the elbows to the floor to lower the whole upper body. And please come out, step the left knee back, coming back into tabletop, resting for a moment. If you'd like to, we can take cow pose, cat pose, or both, giving the spine a little movement. And we'll switch sides. Step the right foot forwards. Oh, there it goes. Outside of the right hand. You know, I thought with yin I could wear the other pants. Nope, can't do it. Hands stay inside right foot, shoulders inside right knee, lunging forwards. Lizard or wider variation of dragon. And setting up for success on this side, again, your preferred prop arrangement, hands, knees. And release back out. Set the right knee back below the hips. And again, if you'd like, keeping still here, child's pose, or if you'd like, give a little bit spinal extension, cow pose. And flexion, cat pose. And we'll come into a seat. So I would suggest you face the long edge of your mat. We're going to take our lateral dragonfly, similar to the shape we took in the beginning, but we'll bring the left leg out to the side and take the right foot inside left thigh. Twisting so that the chest can be in line with the inside of the left leg. Take the left arm on or inside the leg and reach right arm up and over. Right knee, right hip stay relaxed, even as right hand reaches up and away. And we can prop the left hand into the side of the head so the head does not have to hold itself up. If that's uncomfortable in the shoulder, we can drape the right arm behind the back or let it rest onto right thigh or right knee. And please sit back up, resting for a moment. This is when especially where sitting up may feel more intense than having actually stayed in the pose. Take a minute to send the weight back into the right hip, right sit bone. And switch sides, right leg out, left foot inside right thigh. Again, turning the chest so that it can be in line with the right leg. Taking the right arm on or inside the leg, left arm reaches up and over. Keeping left knee, left hip relaxed. We might feel this most in the outside of the left hip or maybe up into the lower back. Again, we can prop the head if you'd like, add any variations, a block or a towel underneath your elbow if the leg is too high, if you don't feel enough, or setting a block or blanket onto your leg if you'd like to be higher up. And lifting back up, taking your time to do so, sinking the left hip back into the floor, sitting tall. And please slowly make your way onto your back, coming into a reclined twist. Release spine, shoulders, and head all down to the floor. Hugging the knees toward the chest, rest for a moment here. A couple rounds of asymmetrical shapes. And take the arms out to the sides, knees over hips or navel, and release the knees to the left. Take the left arm onto the legs if you'd like, letting the arm help anchor them toward the floor. We could set the legs onto a block or bring a block between the knees as well, turning the head to the right. Breathing into right side, right hip. And breathing into the twist. Knowing that right shoulder, right arm may not land right away, keep breathing into the right side. Pressing the left arm into the ground, take the knees back up. Resting a moment if you'd like, hug the knees back into the chest as right hip lands back to the floor. And we'll switch sides, knees to the right, take the arms back out to the side so we can turn the head to the left. Right arm can help anchor the legs as the head turns away. Breathing into left side, left hip. Pressing the right arm into the floor, take the knees back up, hug the knees into the chest. Feeling where the whole back body lands, spaces around the spine, back of the pelvis, back of the hips. You can give a little rock, a little movement if you'd like. And take your preferred shape for our yin variation of happy baby. We can pull the knees wide, staying here, or take the hands down to the ankles. Either way, let the legs hang from the arms. Really, the only grip that's happening is in the hands. Shoulders may hug back toward the floor slightly, just so the legs aren't pulling the chest up, but choose where you'd like to be for your body and your comfort. And adding on any additional shapes or poses that you would like, evening out from your practice, from your day. If there's anything we missed that you'd really benefit from, that you were hoping we'd do, go ahead and take this time to take that option. If you feel complete and ready to release for our extended practice, find your way to your preferred shape. We can take a rolled up towel or blanket under the knees if you'd like. Arms can be down at the sides. If you'd like, if it is more comfortable, you can rest them onto the abdomen, but we will be working through points of the fingers throughout our 31 points, so you may want the fingers to not be touching anything. A very small, again, not even pillow, rolled up towel or blanket could be placed under the head if you feel like this point is going to be tender after resting with the head onto the floor. Finding your preferred shape to land, making any last minor adjustments. Where are the hip bones? Where are the shoulder blades? What rotation do we have in the shoulders? And take your awareness to the bones and where they would rest. Just like we did in the beginning, feel as though the breath is moving in through the nose, down into the navel, and out into the limbs, moving down the bones of the arms, the spine, the bones of the legs, and up and out through the nose. Slowing the breath. No need to try to take in more breath. Just observing what is already there, however it is right now. Now release the movement of the breath from the nose, paying more attention to the energy and the direction of the breath inside the body, how the breath presents itself, how it makes you feel, as opposed to just respiratory function. Begin to observe the breath like a wave up and down the length of the body. Observe the inhale moving up toward the crown of the head. Observe the exhale down the length of the body toward the soles of the feet. Observe the inhale as it moves to the crown. Observe the exhale as it moves toward the soles of the feet. Continue to observe this direction and pattern of breath. Now, please observe the exhales moving down to the ankles. Observe the inhales still to the crown of the head, effortless. Observe down to the ankles. Observe the exhales down to the knees, observing the breath in a wave-like motion between crown and knees. Exhales observe to the base of the spine, feeling the breath move between the crown and the base of the spine. Observe the exhales to navel center. Observe the inhale toward the top of the head and observe the exhale to navel center. Observe the exhales now to heart center. Feeling the breath move between the crown of the head and heart center. Observe the exhales to throat center. Observe the exhales to the point between the eyes. Observe the inhale just above the crown of the head. Observe the exhale to the point between the eyes and the inhale to just above the head. Release the motion of the breath and be aware of a single point between the eyes. Picturing or feeling this point in whatever way resonates with you. A light, a physical or energetic space in the body, a color. Awareness to the point between the eyes. Whole body rests in stillness, no movement, no action required of you. Please now become aware of the point at throat center. The space inside right shoulder joint. Right elbow. Right wrist. Tip of the right thumb. Right pointer finger. Right middle finger. Right ring finger. Right little finger. Right wrist. Right elbow. Right shoulder. Throat center. Left shoulder. Left elbow. Left wrist. Tip of the left thumb. Left pointer finger. left middle finger, left ring finger, left little finger, left wrist, left elbow, left shoulder, throat center, heart center, center of the right side of the chest, heart center, center of the left side of the chest, back to heart center. Rest with your awareness here. Observing this stillness at the very center of the chest. No need to move, act, or do anything. Return to the intention you had set at the beginning of your practice. Feeling this intention throughout whole body. Letting it fill the whole mind. Gently start to expand awareness and breath back throughout whole body. Be aware of where the trunk of the body lands, where the arms and the legs rest, where hands and feet rest. Aware of the tips of the fingers and the tips of the toes. Begin to move the fingers and the toes. Bend the ankles and the wrists. Gently start to move the limbs, the elbows, the knees. Roll to one side for a couple breaths. And make your way up into a tall seat. Spine stacked tall, hands resting onto the knees or onto the tops of the legs, return to that element of stillness, of peace, of rest, whatever you considered the end of your practice to be. Keeping your intention and this state with you in the back of your mind, knowing what it took to get here. Maybe movement, maybe just turning everything off for a little while. Maybe it was breath, focus. Using any of these tools you carry with you always to come back toward this state whenever you'd like. Please bring the palms of the hands together at heart center, bowing your head to your chest, acknowledging your breath, your peace, and all that you are. Namaste. Hi guys, thanks for practicing with me today. If you'd like to see more videos, if you'd perhaps like to see more of Miko's arm being shoved under the door, I'll link a couple right here. I'll link my page. I'll link the most recent series or video. And subscribe if you would like to let yourself know when I put out a new video. What do you think, Miko? Do you think that's a good idea? I think that's a good idea.